Have you ever dealt with bitterness and unforgiveness in your life? Surely we all have. Watch how God has dealt with Rosalie to uncover her past and open up her heart with repentance and reconciliation with German Christians. Stay tuned.
For nearly 2,000 years, Jews and Christians have been divided. But now, God is calling for the healing of past hurts and the comforting of His people. Discover how God is prophetically uniting Jews and Christians across the world today on The Crossover. Here are your hosts, Mitch and Rosalie.
We're in our studios, and we're back from Germany. A very impactful time, not a vacation, but a definite work time. And it was very meaningful to both of us, but especially to Rosalie, being a second-generation Holocaust survivor going to Germany. So let's let her share with us some of the things that went through her mind and things that she had to work through. So share with us, what did it mean to you to go to Germany?
First of all, I never in a million years ever wanted to go to Germany. In fact, my heart's desire has been to take you to Switzerland and show you where I lived for 3 years and go to the Alps and all of that. And in fact, we were going to go visit our children in Seattle, when Pastor Jobst Bittner came to Houston and he spoke about this March of Life, making a Star of David over Eastern Germany and to pray over the areas where the death marches were and so much evil was done to the Jews. I was totally impressed that a German group of Christians were doing such a thing. And in my mind I thought, that's a wonderful thing for others to do. I would never be interested in going. But what happened was I was filming his talk, and at the end of his talk he started praying. So as he was praying, I figured the talk is over, I'll start zooming out and close this part of the program. But as I was zooming out, he said, if there are any second or third generation survivors here, I want to personally, as a German, apologize to you for the sins of my ancestors and my family and all Germans. And in my mind I thought, well, that's nice, but in the spirit realm, Pastor Jobst Bittner is a real prayerful person, and there's authority in his prayers, is what we've learned since we've been in Germany. But I didn't know that. And as all of a sudden the presence of God was so strong in the room that as I was zooming out with the camera, I was almost getting slain in the Spirit and almost fell physically backwards from the power of the Holy Spirit in the room. There was something that happened to me in that room. And you didn't come with me that night, but I drove back home, I stayed up late at night, which I do a lot with editing and such, and when I woke up very early for me, around 5:45 in the morning, and I woke up with like this shield, or an impregnation spirit feeling. I don't know how to explain it, right over here around my gut and all, and I knew in my spirit that we were supposed to go to Germany and be a part of this March of Life. I knew the majority of it was for my own personal healing. Because here we are producing a program that is focusing on healing relationships between Jews and Christians. And how could I produce a program focusing on that if I myself haven't healed my relationship or my trust in Germans or German Christians even. And I felt that we had to go, even if we didn't video at all. So I would be healed in that, so we can produce better programs, and also for my own self. But I also knew we needed to document it, considering what they're doing. Mitch, you and I, we interview many Holocaust survivors, and they tell their side of the story. I have never in a million years thought I would ever get to interview descendants of Nazis repenting and weeping and asking for forgiveness for what their family members did in Germany, and asking for forgiveness for their nation and all, to God and to Jews. There were about 12 Jews that came to that March of Life. We were one of them. We were two of them. 12 Americans. About half of us were Jewish. And of course, 2 Holocaust survivors. So
why don't you share with us what happened in that room in Leipzig?
Well, what I want to say before that is, the other side of it, which was a miracle, is that you, babe, rarely like to take off a lot of time from work. And we took off, 2.5 weeks. And that was another sign. And people started giving money to it. And it was just obvious that it was important to go.
A lot of people saw the merit in us being there with the cameras.
Yeah, for their sake, and for, the sake of the crossover.
So share with us, it was more of a personal experience for you. You realized that you had to go for your own healing, not knowing what that meant, but you learned pretty quickly what that was going to mean in the first day of the church event, organizing and the praise and worship. And why don't you share with us that day in Leipzig?
Well, I will say that I felt that peace before going, but as the week just before leaving for Germany, all of a sudden the fears started to come. Fears of being hurt. I will tell you that, before even going. There was fear and trepidation. And I was starting to get, people were emailing me scriptures that were very important, that built me up. But anyway.
Fear of being personally hurt. Yes,
I just felt a lot of fear about going to that land. It was very strange. So
when you say hurt, physically? Emotionally?
I don't know, I just felt fear. It was a lot, I don't know what it was. Going to a place where Jews were almost totally annihilated. Who would want to go there?
Okay. So we're in Leipzig, we're in a church, wonderful praise and worship, and a lot of teaching and organization going on. And what happened at the end of the evening?
Well, it was my birthday. It was August 9th, and it was my 50th birth. I was 50 years. I was actually turning 51, but it's like my Jubilee year was 50. And the way I've been standing on that 50th year is that everything that Satan had tried to take from me and destroy would be returned and healed. And on my birthday, on August 9th, my 51st birthday, I was filming Peter Loth, who's a Holocaust survivor, who was born in a concentration camp. And he had such intense experiences, a lot of rape and just terrible beatings, and through most of his life, even after the war, as an orphan in Poland, they still put Stars of David on the Jewish children and treated them differently than the other orphans. And it was just one thing after another he was sharing with everyone. And after he would say some terrible atrocities that people were doing because he was Jewish, then he would look at this crowd. Now, this crowd of people are, 70% of the people of Jobst Bittner's church are descendants of SS and Nazis. So I'm in the back, I'm not seeing the faces of these people, but he is, Peter is. And when he was speaking these atrocities, he would then look at everyone and say, "Would you forgive?" He'd say another terrible thing, that how could anybody who could live through 5 of these things, they would be insane. And then he would look at them all and say, "Would you forgive?" And I know that I noticed people on the side of me. I started hearing weeping and mourning and moaning. People going on their knees, just losing it. And the guilt and repentance that they were feeling, that their families had a part of that. And so at a certain point in the room, he said, I want to ask you to forgive me. And I kind of moved from my camera, and it was like, what? Did he just say that? He says, I want to ask for your forgiveness. I couldn't believe he was saying that. And they were kind of quiet, and they kind of whispered yes. And then he said, will you love me? He said, will you forgive me for hating you? And they all said yes.
We will be right back after this short break. Over the centuries, Jews and Christians have been persecuted, tortured, and martyred. Never again. God has a plan to establish solidarity in these prophetic times. We must never forget.
I wrote to this Nancy, and she wrote me the most nauseatingly sweet letters in the Lord that anyone could write. But the scales began to fly from my eyes hard and fast. Scale number one. She writes me a letter. You Jews, you know the anti-Semites say, you Jews? Well, she was the exact opposite of the anti-Semite. You Jews are all good. You Jews are all special. And she was going on and on how wonderful the Jews are, and I was going to throw up. And I said to her, Nancy, I said to her, you Yellow Rosa, Texas, there are good Jews and there are bad Jews, just like there are good Christians and there are bad Christians. You see, until she wrote me that letter, I was not capable of admitting or accepting that there are good Christians. So I was in Jerusalem, January 1996, showing the jihad video for the International Christian Embassy of Jerusalem. How many people know Jan Willem van der Hoven? Okay, we're good friends. He now has the International Zionist Center, not the embassy. I work with the embassy, I work with the center. And after I showed the video, two gentlemen came up to me with a very heavy German accent. And they said to me, would you like to come and speak in our Staatshunige Theologische Hochschule, in our theological seminary? And I was saying to myself, no way, I'm going to Germany. I said, where's your seminary? They said to me, in Basel. Basel is Switzerland. Well, Switzerland was neutral in World War II. So I gulped. I said, you know what, Switzerland was neutral. I suppose if you invite me, I've got to go. So I went to Switzerland. There I am, where Theodor Herzl spoke in 1897 in the Staatscasino. There were 5,000 German-speaking people there. I thought they were Swiss. I was wrong. But they were all crying tears for Israel, tears of love, tears of repentance, just like the guys in New Braunfels. So I said to myself, okay, these Swiss Germans, I forgive them too. They're also kosher. And so I was hugging and kissing, they were hugging and kissing me. What part of Switzerland are you from? They said, Nein, Deutschland. We're from Germany. Or Nein, Österreich, we're from Austria. And I said to myself, boy, this is the Lions then. These are all Nazis. But they're all crying tears for Israel. I said, you know what? These guys are kosher. And you have to understand this testimony. You understand that my message tonight is not a message of hatred against the Muslims. I always loved the Muslims, and I still do. It was the Christians that I hated. But I'm telling you how I overcame my hatred of the Christians, and today I love the Christians. And I love the Muslims. I love the Jews. There is no human being that I hate. Because if you hate one human being, you hate God. That's my message, by the way, tonight.
Welcome back to The Crossover.
Peter's asking for forgiveness, and what happened?
Then there was just an atmosphere change in the room, and he obviously was seeing their torn faces, very emotionally distraught, these German Christians from this church, and he started laying his hands on their heads and saying, come, be comforted. Jesus forgives you, and I forgive you. And people started lining up. He was saying, come. And he says, I will stay here all night if I have to be there with you and hug you. And it was such an atmosphere that it was not an earthly atmosphere. As people were, many people, most of the congregation lined up to just hug him and for them to receive forgiveness from the survivor.
Can you forgive me?
Könnt ihr mir vergeben?
Listen to the voices.
Da hört ihr mal die ganzen Stimmen an.
Can you forgive me?
Könnt ihr mir vergeben?
The same way Peter asked.
So wie auch Petrus gefragt hat.
Remember Jesus?
Weißt du, wie das war, als Jesus
3
da war?
times.
3-mal hat Jesus ihn
Can you
gefragt.
forgive me?
Kannst du mir vergeben?
So that I can forgive your trespasses.
Damit ich auch deine Sünden vergeben kann.
So that I can break the generational curse upon you.
Damit ich den Fluch der Generationen über dir zerbrechen kann.
So that I can set you free from my life, from some of those lives was happening.
Damit ich euch freisetzen kann von dem, was in meinem Leben passiert. Manchem, was da passiert ist.
I don't want nothing from you.
Ich will doch gar nichts von euch.
Only thing I want, can you love me?
Das Einzige, was ich will, ist, könnt ihr mich lieben?
I can walk to any of you.
Ich kann zu jedem von euch gehen.
I can embrace you.
Ich kann dich in die Arme nehmen.
I can love you.
Ich kann dich lieben.
And I can forgive you.
Und ich kann euch vergeben.
And I set you free.
Und ich setze euch frei.
Some people obviously knew I was Jewish or whatever, and they started lining up behind me as I'm filming. And I had asked the Lord, I said, God, you know, I know I'm here to film, to present this to our viewers so you can get a taste of this, but I also know I needed to get this healing as well. And I asked God to give me wisdom and discernment to know when to stop the filming, you know, and let God do what He has to do with me. This girl, so obviously the people lining up behind me, so I let my camera go, and this, one of the first person who did it was a person a little younger than me and asking me for forgiveness for something her uncle or grandparents have done. And I felt I needed to first ask her for forgiveness. I asked her for forgiveness for never in a million years wanting to ever come to Germany, not trusting anyone with a German last name, always wondering who their parents were, who their grandparents were, what did they do in the war. Just not, you know, even though people might be German Christians that I just no trust whatsoever. I asked her to forgive me for that, and I also I said, I will stand in the gap for all second and third generation survivors who also are carrying this bitter root and prejudice against Germans, no matter what they think and feel or where they stand with God. And so she forgave me for that, and then she said her forgiveness, I forgave her, and it was very weird. I just never, weird, I just never thought I would forgive that. I mean, Mitch, you and I, we spoke to people whose families were from Auschwitz and whose grandparents helped run the trains, and we were friends with these people. I would never be friends with such a person, just to think of who their family was. But anyway, this was a breaking point for me at that moment, and as we were hugging, something broke in my heart. It was like my heart was real hard about this issue, and it was like cracks were, it was breaking loose, and I was like breathing through my heart for the first time, it felt almost.
So it's late at night, the evening's coming to a close. I wrap up all the cameras, bring them outside, and where's Rosalie? What was going on?
So what happens is, I just decided, since I've been standing almost all day filming, afternoon, in the evening, decided to lie down in the back and just kind of stretch my arms back. I lie down on the ground. And as I was stretching my arms back over my head, again, that started again, where I was like breathing through my heart, and I was very emotional. On the outside, I was like weeping, breathing through my heart. For a while there, it was just an experience. And as I was lying there and that was happening, on the outside I kind of looked like a mess, but on the inside, God took me back to a very young age. He took me back to a time very young, like a year old, I mean, back. And one of the things that Peter Loth spoke about was God had him ask for forgiveness to the SS commanders of the camps that he was in, and he couldn't do it. And God said, well, I know that you haven't forgiven your mother, because his mother gave him away after the camps, gave him away to a Polish woman, right? She couldn't take care of him. She was so weak, she just gave him away. Anyway,
and he did not know his mother.
He didn't know his mother. She had medical experiments just like he did in the camps and all. But anyway, what happened with me was the same thing. I was put in an orphanage at 6 months. I was given away.
More of The Crossover when we return. For too long, misinformation, misunderstanding, and miscommunication have separated Jews and Christians. Now is the time to restore Jewish-Christian relations.
Rabbi, last night was a very moving ceremony. There was a theater done. A Corrie ten Boom was acted out, who was a Christian family that took Jewish families during the Holocaust and hid them and saved 800 lives, and we saw that last night, and a lot of other banner parades, and just a very touching ceremony. Afterwards, I got to speak to some of the Jewish congregants that had come, and many of them were in tears. They were highly emotional. Here they are in a church with their Christian brethren under one roof here watching this, but I could also see that some of them were confused talking to him. They didn't know how to process this event.
Christian people have to understand the history. Our grandparents in Eastern Europe used to cross the street when they saw a cross, when they saw a church. To Christians, the cross represents love. To our grandparents, the cross represented rape and murder. Most of the pogroms, massacres, took place around Easter time, when the priests would stand up and say, kill the Jews, save Mother Russia. So for thousands of years, Christianity represented death and danger to us. So until now, and even in America, in the freest country in the world, where Christians love us. I mean, there is a lot of intermarriage in America. It's one of the serious issues that a rabbi has to deal with. Christians want to marry us. 100 years ago, Christians want to kill us. The fact is that it will take time. But I think events like this one, and churches like this one, where the pastors are proud to stand up and have Israeli flags all over this church, it's incredible. I believe that the time will come when all of these issues will disappear, where in fact, I would like to speak in more churches, and I would like to invite more pastors and ministers to speak in my synagogue. I think we need to start speaking the same language. Some Christians are nervous. How do you speak to a Jew, a rabbi? A lot of people came over, shook my hands. May I shake your hand? They've never seen a rabbi. In Texas, in Dallas, there are thousands of Jews living here. There are 5 synagogues within 1 mile away from here. But we need to get to know each other. We need to realize that we have so much in common, that you don't have a better friend than the Jewish community. And we don't have a better friend than the serious Christians. That's right. Because America is in danger, the world is in danger, and we have to work together.
Welcome back to The Crossover.
Is there anything else you want to share now that you've gone through many more experiences since you've been back? And
I think what I really want to do is say something to people who might be watching. If you're watching today's program and you're listening to my testimony, and you're a Jewish person and you have a root of bitterness, prejudice against Christians in general, definitely Germans, Germany. I've been there. But one of the main purposes of our program is to let the Jewish community know that there's this growing group of Christians that love us unconditionally, and even German Christians.
Join Mitch and Rosalie as they reach an ever-growing worldwide audience through The Crossover. We invite you to become a Crossover partner right now by calling the number on your screen. For your monthly gift of $30 or more, you will receive the Crossover Partnership Pack, which includes a DVD of today's program, a personal greeting and prayer message from Mitch and Rosalie, more information about the Crossover Project. As you continue to support The Crossover each month, you will receive a new Crossover DVD, plus a ministry report, and your name will be added to our healing room. Call now and join the growing family of Crossover partners.